Yes, hello. It's now time to start this wonderful webinar. My name is Martin Mehmet König, and I'm a library director at Ängelholm Libraries in the south of Sweden. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Sander van Kempen. Do you want to say hi?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I work at the National Library in the Netherlands, and like Martin, we are both members of the Standing Committee Public Libraries from IFLA.
Yes, and you're here for the Public Library Innovations in COVID. We have a wonderful panel. First, I would like to say that this you're taking part of the IFLA Public Libraries section's mid-term seminar, reflecting back and thinking forward, and we are partnering with the literacy and reading section. So welcome, and we are all IFLA. Sander, do you have anything before we start with the panelists? I think we're gonna let them introduce themselves because that will be best.
That's a good idea. I have two things I want to point out. The webinar is being recorded, so if you have to leave early, you can still look at it at a later time. And the other thing is, please ask questions via the chat. We will have time for that at the end. Okay.
Yes. So then we're going to start with the presentations. And first up is Casey and Amanda. Over to you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Casey Bruck. I work at the McCall Library. This is my partner over here, Amanda. We taped our presentation, so I'm going to play it for you because it's really early in the morning over here. So I'm going to share my screen. Full screen. Casey Bruck. I work at the McCall Public Library.
Hi, I'm Amanda Keaveny. I work for the Shepherd's Home, and the Shepherd's Home is a nonprofit home for children in crises.
Thank you. Here's a short video about our innovation called the Tutor Mobile, a mobile learning lab. So let's take a moment and jump on the bus. Share the screen. But before we dive into what we're talking about. We're going to give you a brief description of where McCall is. So let me switch to my slides real quick. All right. McCall is a small resort town located in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, in the potato state of Idaho. As you can see there, it's on the western half of the country. There's a little picture of our library there in the corner. As you can see, it's a pretty small town. So, late last summer of 2020, the McCall-Donley School District announced in response to the pandemic that they're going with the AB schedule this year. That means half the students would be going on Mondays and Wednesdays, while the other half would be going Tuesdays and Thursdays. We started thinking about what all those kids were going to be doing on their off days that they're not in school. Many of them would be home alone or just hanging out with a sibling out all day while the parents were working. So we started coming up with an idea.
And that is when the light bulb went on and we came up with the Tutor Mobile. It's a free mobile learning lab. And on board we have a librarian and tutors. And essentially we're coming up with literacy's ice cream truck, right? So instead of driving around the neighborhoods blasting music and trying to sell sweet treats, we were really advocating for learning and help with schoolwork, providing STEAM kits, so science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and then also access to Wi-Fi, snacks. And our big focus was really providing some tutors to help supplement and support the students. Casey, we'll go ahead and go to slide 4. Yeah, thanks. So we had this great idea, but we didn't have a bus. And that led us to our third partner, McCall Parks and Rec. And we also talked with the people who operated the school buses, and we were able to map out where students were already familiar with the bus being and that the areas that had the highest concentration of kids. And then each partner between the 3 of us took a day of the week, and we were responsible to drive the bus, go to the designated stops, meet with volunteer tutors, set up a table, pull out the chairs, boxes of books, have the STEAM kits, iPads, and Wi-Fi hotspots. And then in the beginning, we were struggling a little bit getting people out of the comfort of their home, and with the help of a local coffee shop, we were able to have free pots of hot chocolate and coffee and tea.
Cool. Then in the early winter, our state and our community initiated a tighter pandemic lockdown, and we had to park the Tutor Mobile for a couple months. Tutoring stopped, but Amanda didn't. She was able to apply for and was subsequently awarded with several grants for a hibernating Tutor Mobile. Money in hand, we went back to the planning table and devised a new Tutor Mobile plan.
Great. So grant money, which was awarded to us by a private nonprofit local hospital called St. Luke's, as well as the KidSense Foundation, which is a Rite Aid, and that's a pharmacy. And that money allowed us to hire a dedicated, oh, there we go. Thanks, Casey. So you'll see a couple of those logos. So the grant money allowed us to hire a dedicated Tutor Mobile program coordinator. And the bus came out of hibernation last month. Oh, excuse me. So at this point, right, we're in the dead of winter. It's pretty difficult to tutor when it's below freezing and having students pull out pencils. And so we were granted access to our closed community center. They opened their doors for us, and we were able to transport students from the stops to the community center and tutor there. And then the bus last month came out of hibernation and has gone back into action, back to the normal route, and is in the community. And we really do see an increase in participation when we're mobile. Now, moving ahead, we're going to finish out the school year and are looking at exciting summer programming options.
So yeah, overall, the library was an innovative partner by working hard to see the need to support the students in providing resources. This project has built a greater community trust and has strengthened our partnerships. We now know we can depend on each other, making lasting impacts in and outside the library, even during times of crisis. Families were impressed with the outreach and are more likely to see the library as a supportive role in the community. We're just seeing that libraries are much more versatile than people imagined.
And that's the Tutor Mobile. So we're honored to be a part of this panel and grateful for the opportunity to hear what everyone else around the world is doing.
Thanks.
Nicely done, Casey and Amanda. Very nice.
Very much. Are we
So
going to do questions now, Sandra? Or are we gonna save them
do
for
the questions at the end. From one relatively small library in the United States to another small library in India. Binoy, if you can share your screen and share your presentation and thoughts with us.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sander. May I share my screen?
Yes, it should work. You want me to pull up your presentation? Binoy, I have it here.
Sorry.
You want me to show your presentation and you can talk us through it?
Just a minute.
Okay.
If you just join us, we have had one presentation and we're now waiting for the second presentation in this IFLA midterm seminar.
Sorry for the delay.
That's okay.
Because some problem. Okay.
Are you able to share your screen?
Can you see my screen?
Not yet, but maybe. Binoy, I also have your presentation, so I can share my screen. Is that an option?
Just a second. Okay. It is okay. Okay. Yes, I got it.
Yes.
I think it is now. Can you see?
Yes, we can see. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Thank you. A very good day to all. Thank you, Mr. Sander, and dear panelists. I'm Binoy Matthew, a librarian of a very small library from India. I think almost all public libraries in different countries are working in different conditions and different situations. in my country, India, almost 1% of the total population are public library users. That is the sad situation. But in my state, Kerala, this situation is something different, that 10% of or something more are public library users. I'm representing one small library from Kerala. Before getting into the topic, I just want to elaborate something regarding with my library. Valavatana Grama Panchayat Library is a small village library under a local self-government department of Kerala. Kerala is the one states of India, and are the bottom level autonomous administering bodies. And my library is owned by Valavatana Grama Panchayat. Valavatana is the smallest Grama Panchayat in Kerala, having a population of 8,000 only. And around 24% of the population are now library users here. It was below 10% 10 years back. One important thing regarding to my library is that it is a single library. I am the only one staff in my library, and only volunteers and other partners, some partnerships organizations are the helping hand behind me. Here, I try to explain how social media helped me and my library to tackle the situation of the pandemic, COVID time. Every year, our library conducts more than 100 extension programs, and the COVID pandemic completely distracted the movement. And we started yet another way to tackle the situation. March 23rd, 2020, a lockdown was declared in my state. Public places, including my Valavatana GP library, were closed for an uncertain period. Similar to how to the world all affected, I think. Children were undoubtedly struggling more than others because it was their summer vacation time. Many parents asked a librarian to do something to accommodate children in their lockdown days. Living behind closed doors was so painful situation even for elders, and to children it was more crucial. More than 350 children were regular users of my library at that time. On the same day, that March 23rd, we started a separate online platform for children, Creative Homes Defeat COVID. That was the name we gave for that platform. Since WhatsApp was the most familiar social media in our area, we used to create the online platform in the first phase. We added 200 families that covered around 300 children who were using library. Parents of the children were informed about Creative Homes and ensured their full support. We divided the children into 7 teams. That was the structure of our Creative Homes Defeat COVID online platform. 7 teams of children, and each teams have its own small groups, and together and the entire teams will be presented their outcome and their activities in a common platform, that is Creative Homes Defeat COVID. 20 rounds of activities were planned, and the children did that from their houses and post them in the group. In each round, experts from specific area were interacting with the students. Each of the teams has a very, very interesting outcome happened from them, and we shared it in another and other social media platforms of the library. And 250 students directly and almost the same number indirectly joined with the Creative Homes. It comes around 30% of the total number of children in that area. Observe, learn, ideate, create, and present was the method we adopted for children. Children and their parents got acquainted more with the various online apps. In the before time, they had a very small knowledge regarding with the online applications, and through the library's activities, they got more knowledge. And in the second phase, we trained the members how to use video conferencing applications like Zooms, Google Meet, etc. It created more opportunities for the members. This time, the reach of the Creative Homes grew more, and many children and parents become interested to be part of this experiment. Proudly say, more than 10 rural public libraries in our area, in our state, and many schools adopted the method we implemented in the pandemic period. I would like to present some interesting points regarding the Creative Homes defeat COVID. The children made more than 6,000 products sitting in their houses in various activity rounds and post the picture, videos, and the details in the WhatsApp group so far. Children made more than 1,000 masks and distributed among the society with the help of seniors. Because mask is very important to stop or prevent the pandemic. And they become the leaders to communicate with the society the relevance of the measures we have to take at that time. They have conducted more than 100 programs through the online platform so far and performed programs for radio channel for the state also. They collected money selling masks, book cards, and hand wash they made and handed over 5,000 rupees to Chief Minister's Distress Relief Fund. This is a very, very good intervention for the social cause. They conducted many surveys using online forms. One of these was to identify the COVID impact in the houses where children live. They planted more than 500 tree saplings near their houses. They asked for books in sometimes and the librarian delivered in their houses that books. A home delivery we applied at that time. They in library also shares e-books and e-resources through this online platform. And in 2020 June, online classes for school children were started. But some students in our area were found no facilities for online learning. Team Creative Home collected the details of children, those did not have facilities. Library became center of online learning at the time. The students community in the Creative Homes collected money for the good causes. They provide equipments, cable, internet connections, and solved the issues of all children in the area with the support of some organizations. They started a special news bulletin exclusively for children in the name News at Kuti Views. Kuti means children in Malayalam. It is our local language is Malayalam. And News at Kuti Views, their perception, they are making news. And it has touched 39 episodes. Entire works of the news are done by children and they are publishing it through library's YouTube channel. Interlibrary and interstate idea exchange programs of children have been conducted in association with other libraries and organizations and using the platform of INELI, International Network of Emerging Library Innovator. I'm very lucky to say that I am one of the member of INELI. Children Forum started to publish e-magazine also in the name of Dew Drops. That was the name of their e-magazine. And they prepared 7 e-books also, which consisted the memories of their grandparents. And they have become the part of libraries, another initiative, Green Walk, which is running by Women's Forum aimed at making kitchen gardens in every houses. I am very proudly said that my library has 5 forums and they are the leading factors or leading backbones of my library. Children's Forum is there and youth, women and senior citizens also one forum for the cultural activities. And I would like to say one more point regarding the Green Walk. It is yet another intervention in the pandemic period. Green Walk is an initiative by our Women's Forum of my library. They created an online group in the name Green Walk and initiated for self-sufficiency in vegetables in every houses in the area. Because we are dependent for other states and other regions for vegetables especially and food grains because Kerala is a consumer state. And the library's intervention in this area make a very good result. Women's Forum launched the program in association with the Agricultural Office of our area and Kudumbasri. It is a network of self-help group of women. In the first phase, 100 houses had become willing to be part of the movement. Library gives classes through the online platforms, WhatsApp, FB, and conferencing applications being used. Agricultural Office distributes seeds and plants. Kudumbasri spreads the message in grassroots level. We have conducted online competitions and providing facilities to present best practices. Green Walk became a very successful experiment and almost all families in the area are now engaging in making kitchen gardens and many of the houses could be able to produce enough vegetables for their needs. Every forums of my library successfully use the social media platforms to connect the society and connect the society with the library too. This experiment through social media are helpful for the entire community to match with the new normal life, I think. And library become a proper guide. Library users are leaders of the right time, especially children. All time we are saying that the today's readers are tomorrow's leaders. But our experience, and regarding with the children, we are saying that children are tomorrow's leader. But in our experiment, in my library's experiment, the children become the leaders of today. My renovated library was inaugurated amidst of the pandemic period on February 6th. And with big pleasure and gratitude, I remember the message of Christine McKenzie, the president of IFLA, on that occasion. Thank you, Jane Cowell Center and Shadi sir, who introduced me for this platform. And extreme thanks to giving me this platform, the IFLA's the great platform. I hope it will create a limitless confidence in small libraries across the world, and we together can make a big change in the future. Thank you.
Wow, Binoy, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. That looked really, really great. And I think it's a great example of how a really small library like yourselves, I mean, you are the library, can make such a great impact in such a disturbing time. So very inspiring. Thank you, Binoy, for sharing that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sorry, Martin.
Yeah,
we'll go over to Whitney.
Okay, let me just get my screen shared. Okay, thank you everybody for having me to this panel today. I'm very inspired by what my library colleagues around the world are doing. And today I'm here to talk to you about a project that we did here in Adams County, Colorado. I wanted to give you a little bit of a background about who I am and who my library district is, so you kind of know our community and why this was a need. I am Whitney Oakley, and I manage the Anythink Bennett Public Library in Adams County, Colorado. The Anythink Library District is the library district that represents Adams County, which is an 1,100 square mile county. It's a very long, located directly above Denver. My specific library is about 40 miles east of Denver, 15 miles east of the Denver International Airport. But the county as a whole is a mix of suburban, rural, and industrial, semi-urban landscapes. So we have quite a diverse range of people that we serve. This is a picture of my specific branch. My town is only 2,500 people. So it's a very small town in the eastern plains of Colorado. But we serve 3 towns in Adams County and the surrounding area for a total population of about 6,200 people that we serve as a library. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our elder check-in calls program. And this was something that started with a county connection. The county approached the library district and was concerned for the most isolated populations during the COVID pandemic. And the one that they isolated in our area was the elder population. So those are the individuals who are 65 years of age or older. And they asked the library what we could do to connect those people with the much needed resources that the county could provide them, whether it be food assistance, making sure they had the healthcare needs that they needed in their homes, and just to have connection during a time that could be very isolating for them. So we took this back to the library district, and we thought about how we could help and how we could serve. And I encourage you all, if you think about doing something like this in the future, to look at your local library privacy laws. We decided what we could commit to was calling every single active cardholder in the last 3 years over the age of 65 and just give them a check-in call. We had a couple different ways the conversation could go, whether it be specifically resource needed, and some people just needed connection from a library staff member. So this project began around April 22nd. It took about 2 weeks, I would say, for us to get the technology into the hands of the staff that they would need. Each staff member had their own specific phone line login. So it was very private for both the library customer and the staff member. The calls were made through a line where it came from a random phone number. It wouldn't have been a person's personal phone number, and none of the customer information was saved. And we also did about a week or so of training with the individuals who'd be making these calls to the population that we were trying to reach. And when we officially began on April 22nd, we had 32 staff members that were making these phone calls. They were made Monday through Friday between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We chose these hours to be convenient to our customers, so it wouldn't be early mornings, and it also would not be dinner time. And we made, as you can see, the total number was 7,895 calls. Roughly 8,000 senior citizens in our area were connected with. And the different topics that we discussed included, but were not limited to, how to download library materials, help them with e-readers. We talked about the family and the effects of COVID-19, crafting, new hobbies taken up during the time of the stay-at-home order. And we also had a few customers even request a weekly check-in call from librarians. If there was no answer when we were calling, we did have a phone line that people could call back on, and they could reach a librarian directly with any needs that they might have. So we did have that set up in advance, and we also did have 2 bilingual librarians who we could forward on the needs of customers that did not speak English to as well. So we tried to meet the needs of every community member that we were connecting with. Some of the lasting impacts and effects, we did have increased awareness of hotspots and technology available to our elder community. We have definitely seen a few that were able to get hotspots. When we called them, asked what their needs were, we were able to get them some hotspots, and they still continue to use those hotspots for their internet needs, which is amazing and great that we were able to gain that awareness through this program. We also have increased connection and partnership with local municipalities and the county. When the towns and the cities within our county heard what we were doing, they were immensely grateful. I don't think they realized how impactful that the library could be when it came to reaching these populations that needed to be reached. And they continue to reach out and ask us for more assistance in reaching out with our community. And then customers with limited mobility are getting the services that they need. Some of these customers are in their homes and have been since the COVID pandemic began. And this is a way that we can make sure that their needs are being met, and anything the library can do to meet their needs. And I wanted to end my part of this presentation with a story so that you guys can see some of the impact that this truly had in our community. We did everything from taking hotspots to people to going to people's front porches with our mask and gloves on, and they'd hand the e-reader out the door, and we'd download the stuff and then hand it back to them. But one of the most impactful stories was an individual who was living in an assisted living facility who had been working on a higher education certificate for many years. And this was the last semester of that higher education certificate, and did not have the technology needs in order to finish it when COVID-19 hit. And when our librarian called this individual, she expressed that she had recently lost a family member to COVID-19 and was very upset that she was no longer going to be able to finish her higher education certificate. And so, of course, we went to the drawing board. We told her we were going to figure this out for her, and the assisted living facility let us bring a laptop and a hotspot to the front desk and drop it off for her. And when we touched base back with her, she did say she was able to finish that certificate. And it meant a lot to her in this time that we were able to make that happen for her. So even just an impact in somebody's life like that made this project well worth it. Looking into the future, we have looked into doing this project again and maybe even extending the customer base. We've considered including families with school-age children to help with school resources. Currently, we are in the process of reopening our libraries to the public, and so we're looking at where does this fit into that larger picture as we move forward. Much of this work was done when people were working from home during the time when we were closed to the public, and so how do we roll this into our day-to-day workflow? But it was so impactful that it's definitely something that we are still considering and how we move it forward. It did take about 2 months, and it wrapped up on June 29th, 2020, when all of the calls were completed. So thank you again for having me here today and allowing me to talk to you about this amazing project. And I'm really excited to hear what else my colleagues around the world have been working on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Whitney. What a wonderful project. We're going to move along to Catharina Isberg from Sweden.
Thank you.
One remark, Catharina, before you start. I was under the impression that we had an hour, but we have an hour and a half, so we have a little bit more time, so you don't need to rush. And we have more time for questions if they come up. So please start sharing your questions once you have them in the chat. Okay, Catharina, there you go.
Thank you. I'm just going to So now you should be able to see my presentation.
Yes, we can see it.
And there it is in slide sharing mode. Yes, Catharina Isberg is my name. I'm a library director of Helsingborg, Sweden, and I'm also a chair of Division 4 in IFLA and an IFLA governing board member. Helsingborg wants to be one of the most innovative cities in Europe in 2022. That is our overall city goal. And I think that is important to start with that in order to set the ground for my presentation. 822, Helsingborg 22, is a welfare initiative for the future, for the city. And we want to find innovative solutions for urban development and urban welfare in order to improve the quality of life for our citizens. And the reason for this is, for example, the demographic changes. We get more and more kids and more elderly people. And also the financial situation where we get less and less tax money, and we need to increase the services provided. So all around the city, we are working with innovations in different formats, and innovation can be a lot of different things. And I will give you 3 examples during this presentation. Helsingborg is the number 8 cities in Sweden when it comes to the number of inhabitants. We have 1 digital library, 1 main library, 9 library branches, and a bus. And we organize our work depending on what you're doing, not where you're working. So we have 1 department on read, 1 on search, the digital inclusion, digital divide, 1 meet, that is the meeting place, and 1 department on digital library and media, our collections, and then the support department. Our library and our city is also part of a collaboration between 11 different towns, cities in the northwestern part of Scania, which we call the Helsingborg Family Libraries. And also shortly about COVID-19, the pandemic, and the Swedish libraries. In Sweden, we have a library law that is quite strong, I would say. It showed to be strong in the pandemic, because that has really helped us to keep the libraries open during the pandemic. We have been able to keep them open and safe at the same time, with a lot of measurements taken. And we have given different services in different parts of the pandemic, because sometimes we have had to close them more than in other phases. So some of our innovations are in the physical space, and some of our innovations are moving digital. My 3 examples. The first one is that early on in the pandemic, we really realized that we have to work in totally new ways. We have to move much quicker, become more agile and flexible, with less planning, more trial and error, and adjust. And the picture here is one of my examples. It's our new digital customer service that we implemented in all of the Helsingborg family libraries. So our 55 libraries altogether. We decided to launch a digital customer service, and it took us 2 weeks to launch it. And if this would have been before the pandemic, then we would have had several meetings, we would have had a project plan, and we would have had different levels of decisions taken. And here we just said, okay, let's launch it, and we just dived straight into it. At the Helsingborg Library, we made a similar thing when we were launching our new intranet. We decided to move into Microsoft Teams, and we just went into it. We just moved it from our WordPress blog directly into Teams, and the year in that has been a lot of trial and error and adjust. Also, in the beginning of the pandemic, we had a lot of programs and activities that were planned, and we couldn't keep them. We couldn't do them in the way that we had been planning. We didn't want to cancel them. The decision from the city was clear: adjust, don't cancel. So for example, the children's theater that was going to come to the library, we moved it to a kindergarten where the theater group could meet a small group of children who are normally meeting each other every day, instead of meeting different kids in the library. But of course, a lot of our programs and activities also went into the digital space. And also we have been working in new ways with our staff and our library staff. We have had several different Corona sprints and Corona hackathons with the staff, trying to find new solutions to how to work. And the impact of this is we have been able to reach new library users. We have new and improved services, and we are constantly updating the work that the way that we are working. And this is something that I want us to continue with after the pandemic. Another example is the digital divide, and the digital divide becomes even more obvious and visible in the times of crisis. We realized that we had to be able to continue to give service, but safely. And the picture here shows our support station. It's difficult to see it, but there is a plexiglass in between the librarian and the library customer. And they are sharing the same screen, or the screens are mirrored so that they see the same things. And the librarian can help and support the customer in a safe way, in this way. Also, we moved some services virtually, for example, a digital librarian support service. But when you move things virtually, you have to have a certain level of digital skills. And this support station is really, you go in, you help the ones that are in the most need. So the impact here is the continued digital inclusion. We improved our services, and we have also find things that we want to continue with after the pandemic. This support station is one of those, but then we won't have to have plexiglass. And my third and last example is the digitalization of others, because other businesses have been really quick on making their services digital. And when people can't use those services, many of them comes to the library. And therefore, we found the solution that we have to collaborate much more with those making those services. And for example, we have been able to collaborate with the city's employment and labor department, and also with the city's welfare department and the citizens office. And we are now moving into something that we call Digital 2.0. Digital is our digital competence center, which we have had for 3 years now. And we are now going to move this into a new innovative solution. We don't know where this will end. And we are doing this together with the citizens and other departments. And the impact here is that we reach new library users. We improve our services. We use the competences and the resources within the city much better. And also we see that others get a better understanding of what a modern library is doing. Because we see that many people don't know what we are really doing in the library business. And this is an important issue with that. So I really want us to continue to use these innovations. Some of them are small and some of them are larger, in order to continue to secure access to information, literature and knowledge, access to technology, and the access to the expertise of the library staff.
Thank you so much, Catharina, for that
Thank
great
you.
presentation. I think we already have some questions posed. Sander, would you like to ask them?
Yes, sorry, I needed to get the headset working again. Yes, I have actually questions for all of you. So I'll start with Casey and Amanda, but if a question sort of triggers you to contribute, please do. Casey and Amanda, there was a question about the volunteers. How did you engage them? And more specifically, what kind of requirements did you have to engage these volunteers?
Great question. And Casey, I can jump in there. And then if you have something to add. So we actually have a group here in McCall called the Legends, and they are a group of retired teachers. It's kind of a self-given name, but they reached out to us early on in the process, really interested in wanting to help. And we were really quite concerned about making sure we had concrete, solid COVID protocols, because they are in that high risk category for COVID. And so for our volunteers, we had an application they needed to fill out, as well as a background check. And a background check in the States is something that's done that checks your history to make sure that, just to make sure that nothing else is going on that people don't know about. And then in a short virtual interview. Fortunately for us, we are such a small town that you usually know the person or know somebody who knows them. And so we were able to vet each volunteer since they were working with children. And then the ways we really got them invested, so we have the Legends, and they're already invested. And then we reached out to high school seniors and asked them to really be peer mentors. And we have something in the state of Idaho called a senior project. And that's each senior needs to do something for their community. And so we capitalized on that. And lastly, just really heavy on the word of mouth. People wanted to help and were looking for ways to help. And coming from my side, the nonprofit crises home, I had people already asking for ways to help. And this was, it was really difficult to have anybody help in our home for the children who are already in crises because of COVID protocols, but it was easy to get them outside. So, Casey?
That was great, Amanda. Thanks.
Okay, great. Moving on. Binoy, one personal question from me is, you told us that people used the library before. It was around or less than 10% of the population, and now it's around 24%. I think that's very impressive. Can you tell us a bit what is the greatest lesson learned to achieve this great leap in attracting people to use the library? You need to unmute.
Actually, 10 years back, the situation was the 10% of the population were the members of the, or users of the library. But regular work, that's 100 or more regular extension activities we were conducting the last 10 years, and the result in the when the COVID pandemic started, that time 24%, almost 24% of the population become the users of my library. And after that, I think in the pandemic time, our social media intervention in the different groups, 5 separate online platforms for 5 forums, different forums. I said in the earlier presentation, 5 forums, and it got much popularity, I think, in the before time. And it reached into beyond the limits. I think my LSGD area is just 2.4 square kilometers, but beyond the area, and in my district also. My library is selected as the second best popular library in my district. And it has happened in the same pandemic period. That is the result. I think through the social media, we have any opportunity. Many social groups are in a community, and we can reach into that group. As a library, we can reach into the group through the social media. That is the good side of, I think, the pandemic time.
Okay. Thank you, Binoy, for explaining. Whitney, I was struck by a couple of things when you talked about the calls. What I found is that you have some really nice details, like the calling back line, like the bilingual support, and all of that came about in about 2 weeks. Can you talk a bit about the process of how you got this working? Because it sort of, when you talk about it, it feels like this is a project well thought out of, and it took months to develop, and it didn't. So can you talk a bit of how you got that working?
Yes. So it was myself and another colleague who took lead on the project. Her name is Marcia Marcia, and she works out of one of our other branches. And we also have a group called the Customer Experience Team here at Anythink Libraries, which is really just a group of the branch managers and a couple of support staff who support us in what we do. And that group brainstormed a few things, but really Marcia and I had a meeting and we said, what do we need to do to make sure that this is a streamlined process, that when we are cold calling people, we actually have the resources available to serve their needs. And we wrote them all down, and we contacted the department heads of each department that would need to provide support in that. So IT was a big one, making sure we had the technology to make this successful as staff were working from home. And then making sure that we did have those bilingual staff members on board. And I think the good side, or the upside to the fact that we were in a pandemic, was that we had a lot of staff with enough time working from home to make sure that this project was really well thought out and put together. And we also had the support of our customer experience director, who was really trying to guide all of these things at one time. The actual connect line where people could call back, another manager led that team, which was a separate team of librarians who were scheduled to answer phone calls. So they were not the same team that was making the outgoing calls, which also helped because I didn't have to manage the incoming line. Another branch manager managed that line and the staff that worked on that line. And I think one of the amazing things was that we were able to keep all of our staff working into their full capacity from home in really amazing ways to serve the community. But it took a lot of brain power and a lot of departments working together to make it happen. But it worked out pretty, I don't want to say flawlessly, but we didn't have any major problems, which is great. I think everybody that needed to connect with the librarian was able to do so.
Okay.
Thank you. There is a thread going through this that you've all been able to make this work very fast. And this is a question to all the panelists. Do you think it's easier with innovation during COVID? Has been easier during COVID times than in regular times?
Yes, I would say that it has really forced us to move quickly. Yes, it makes it more on the emergency level, I would say. So really, we have been able to use the pandemic, which has been a very severe situation and difficult situation, but that I would say is the upside of the pandemic.
Okay, good. Does anyone else want to respond to Martin's question?
I would just say it also makes, like, for my library district, we have 7 branches and a bookmobile, and it made the district feel smaller because we were all working together. I think that was a huge thing, is before we're so segmented in our individual communities, and then we had to come together to make things happen. And I think that having the bigger team, it does help to make these initiatives and these innovations that much easier. And I think we're stronger because of that. Now that we're reopening our libraries, we're working together more closely as a team. And I think that innovation can continue in the future.
Okay, that sounds good. I have a question from Margaret to all of you. She asked, COVID requires us to rethink to be more flexible. How did you support your staff to enable to respond in this way? And what are some challenges for the staff? Who wants to go first? Maybe Catharina, you can respond to that.
Yeah, I would say that we have been working for many years with empowerment to really move the power away from the managers to the staff. And I think that that really helped us when the pandemic came. But then also, when you go into a crisis, you go into a much more hierarchical steering model than you usually do. And that can be kind of confusing. And after a while in the pandemic, we really had to think about that. Now we have to let go of that more managerial working style and let go of the power again and give it to the employees. And then when the pandemic got worse again, then we went into that phase again. So we have really been moving around between a more hierarchical level and a more empowerment level. And in order to really make this all work, I really think that it was important that we had been into that long process of empowerment. But we are not all done. We have a long way to continue, but we have started it.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that? Casey?
Sure. Yeah. So as programming that like coordinator, my whole job is to gather people in groups to have events, and couldn't really do that realistically with this pandemic going on. So this gave me and a couple other librarians and people around town free time to experiment and try new things and gain these innovations without a whole lot of like threat of repercussions, because, well, it's a pandemic. We can, if we fail, then, you know, well, what else are we doing anyway?
You can blame it on the pandemic.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we have a question here from Aiden Kerr. What's the most important things the panelists have learned from working during a pandemic and rolling out all of these amazing innovations? Who wants to start? Maybe
I could speak to that really quick, Martin. I would say, and it sounds so cliche, but if you have the passion and the energy for an idea, do it, pursue it. More than anything. And speaking to Catharina, while you're saying you empower your employees and empower them with their passion, because I just went to Casey and said, I don't have any money and I have no staff and no bus, and all I have is this idea. And but I'm excited about it and I think it would work. And taking that passion and going with it, yeah, really did it.
Great, Amanda, thanks. Anyone else?
Yeah, I also think being from a managerial position, we need to be better on listening, but also on saying yes. Because it's so easy to say no or say find the problems with something, but say yes and then go with the flow and try it. And it's difficult.
Catharina, you talked about partners digitizing, and there was a question, I think, from Rosa, and it was a question that struck me as well. How do these partners know that sort of the library is a relevant partner for them to approach? Where does the initiative come from? Does it come from the partner? Does it come from you? Can you explain a bit how this process works?
I would say that it's a lot about making the business more visible, and you have to do a lot of footwork, and it takes time. But you constantly have to show what the library could do. And then also when you find a problem, don't just stay within the library and try to solve it. Call the ones that could be part of this, to the solution. And trying to work much more in between the departments of the city, because that's where you find the big solutions, as I see it.
Yeah.
But it's not easy, and the library is not the first place you think of when you have, for example, a digital solution and you have a problem with it. So we have to be visible and we have to be proactive.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. We have a question, and excuse me if I don't pronounce this right. Simba Opsal for Whitney. Was it difficult to teach older people by phone about the digital library services?
I would say the answer is a combination of yes and no. I think we were fortunate to have the ability to spend as much time as it took to help somebody. And if we could not come up with a solution, we would try to think around the questions to how can we get to a solution that is possible over the phone. And some of these phone calls were literally, hi, how are you? We're your local library calling to check on you. And they'd be like, we're fine, we have everything we need. And some of these phone calls lasted between an hour and 2 hours long. And so each individual staff member has a different experience, and we had a call log sheet where people could make notes about whether or not they thought somebody would need a follow-up with somebody that could help them with a little bit more of those really technical questions, and then we could get somebody on the phone for them at a later date that could do that. So it just was such a wide gamut of needs and interests and people that wanted to talk. And so I would say at the end of the day, we had staff that could get to a place where each person felt that their need was met, whether it took one phone call or multiple, we were able to get there. But most of the phone calls actually were very quick. And it was really just people wanting to say, we miss you guys. And we're so thankful that you called, and maybe just a little bit about what they're doing during their quarantine. And very few of them were the very, very technical, like we need to download onto a Kindle and we don't know how to do that. There was a smaller percentage. So, but overall, I would say that we were able to meet everybody's needs that had them.
Yeah, can I just add to that we found in the Netherlands that since we have older people, but also other people that are not that tech savvy, usually we help them in the library with courses and explaining things. And since this was not possible, people were finding their ways from neighbors, from other support that they would have not used, I think. And also if you create, for instance, webinars or YouTube videos that can be really with a low threshold, you can explain some basics to people, and that could also work as well. I know it worked here in the Netherlands as well. I have a question to Binoy. Binoy, you have many projects and also we've worked with many partners. Can you give a bit of advice of how the library can be a good partner?
One important thing is that our library is under a local self-government department, LSG, and many other institutions in our area are under the same department, LSG. Especially our family health center, the hospital, is under the same department, and the agricultural office, who are dealing the entire activities regarding with the agricultural activities, and they are also under the same department, and veterinary hospitals. And also, I formerly said that Kudumbasri is a huge network of women self-help group, and all are working in the grassroots level of the community. And we can easily, every institution's intention is the same for the community development, whether it is agriculture or the health. And we can connect as a library, we are dealing with the knowledge delivering service, and that part, the IEC part, information dissemination part, we are interacting with, connect with them. And it is easy. And the doctor come in our platform and deliver some messages regarding with the health, especially how to tackle this situation. The doctor came every week and she delivered a message. That is a way we connect with the government institutions. Also, there are other NGOs. So many NGOs are here. Non-governmental organizations are there. Also, we are doing the same thing. And our reach out to the how many people are under library is a component. Then that institutions and organizations every time asking library to connect their projects also. That is the helping hand here we are going.
So if I were to summarize, I would say, since you're all in the same department, that helps that you have sort of that your partners are nearby and probably have the same goal and can reach the community, as you said.
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. I also had another question for Casey and Amanda, and that was about when you were targeting these areas where you wanted to go with the bus. The question is, did you aim at areas where the Wi-Fi and resources were slightly less, so the impact of the corona will be really felt, or how did you target? Where you would go?
So we talked to the people that ran the school buses, and we mainly just focused on the major concentrations of kids, the really kid-heavy neighborhoods, and we kind of trial and errored it for first couple of weeks. At some stops there weren't very many kids. At other stops we got a lot. It did seem to reflect the kind of the disparate or the more poorer neighborhoods did end up sending out more kids. So it did kind of match up with those needs of needing more tutoring help and internet connection, that kind of a thing. So does that sound about right, Amanda?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally right. And then to speak to how the impact being felt for the short and long term, in Idaho, there was a grant specific for families. So you could apply as a parent if your child was in kindergarten through 12th grade. And so we just brought iPads and went knocking door to door. So to let parents know, because a lot of parents didn't know that this resource was out there, or they didn't have the platform to access it, or they didn't have the time. So we pulled up, we said, send your kids out, we're doing story time. Here's the grant, it's up on the iPad right now. Just go ahead and you can fill it out, and this is what it does. And then we also, if they weren't eligible for that, or if that didn't work, we collaborated with a St. Andrew's Cares Committee. It was a committee created specifically during COVID to help gap the economic disparities created by COVID. And so if a family needed a computer, I was able to reach out to the Cares Committee and say, I vetted this family, they really do need it, they don't meet these other qualifiers, let's get them connected and get internet to them. And so that's the long-term impact.
Great, thanks Amanda for sharing that with us. I really like the. Oh, sorry, Martin. I really like that you sort of delivered the grant to their doorstep on the iPad and making sure that the kids had something to do and they can fill it in, and that's brilliant. Thanks, Martin.
Yes, thank you. We were talking a lot about the innovations during COVID times. I was wondering, for there to be innovation, there also has to be a manage of worry and fear about COVID. How have you worked to support your staff or work yourself to be able to keep the spirit up and be able to do these innovations instead of succumbing to fear? Maybe we can start with Whitney.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like the fear didn't exist, because it did. But I also know that when we first closed our libraries here in Colorado for 2 weeks, we didn't know what was going to happen. I think this is similar around the world, right? Like, we didn't know, are we going to be open in a month? And so we didn't know exactly where we were headed. And after those first 2 weeks, and we realized this is going to be a much longer term thing than we thought, I think people, library staff, and I think we hire helping people in libraries, they were more concerned about what's happening to their community and making sure that their communities felt safe. And I think that they are selfless individuals and really, really wanted to feel like they were making a difference. And when they were able to make a difference from home, it made a huge impact on their lives as well. And I think as we move forward and as we around the world start to look at reopening libraries and changing our services, there is going to be some of that fear that creeps back in. And I think ultimately, similar to what Catharina has been talking about, it's letting them feel empowered that they are also a part of these innovations that are helping the community. And when we approach it from that perspective, the people that we hire in libraries, they care about what's happening in their communities and they want to make a difference. And that helps them with their own anxiety and fear about the future. So that's what I would say from my perspective.
Great.
And I could continue on that because I also see that when we start to talk about opening up and changing some of the measurements that we have been taking, you get that fear and anxiety again. And it's difficult to think about it when you are in the middle of a pandemic, but at the same time, you need to get used to the thing that maybe we won't have the plexiglass and be behind the plexiglass forever. Maybe we will get somewhere else. And we have actually started a discussion here at our library with all staff about how do we do that opening and in what kind of order do we do it? When can we start having chairs again in the building? We are not a meeting place right now. We have no chairs. But when can we start to add some chairs? And that is really difficult. And I say that we will need at least 2 months for that discussion to feel safe enough, because it's really, it's much easier to close than to open.
Thank you, Catharina. There was a question earlier from Jane that I think touches on this as well. She said, when the libraries are reopening, your communities have experienced grief, anxiety, and sometimes loss of jobs, or worse, death of family members, etc. How do you see the library helping the community to come to terms with the impact and move to a better future? Can you, Catharina, comment on that?
I think we have to be part of the work, of the job, and really do it together with other departments and listening to the different needs that are there. I also think that we have lost a lot of the library users that we had before, but we have also gotten some new ones. And we need to find the old ones again and keep the new ones. And we need to show what kind of difference can a library make.
And a follow-up question would be that we all did some quick innovations, and we really thought outside the box and had that passion and had that goal. Do you see this is something or that we can take past or take with us when the Corona pandemic has gone? And are there other things that you would like to sort of take with you that you experienced? Amanda, can you comment on that? Sorry for putting you.
It's too busy listening to the full question. Sandra, sum that up for me one more time really quick.
Yeah,
sorry,
I'll take one part of it, because you were so really good about talking about the passion. Is that something that you experienced before the Corona pandemic as well, and you would like to take with you?
Okay, so speaking specifically to these initiatives, you know, and coming up with the idea and then taking it with us in the future. Yeah, what I think I'm going to walk away with most is how incredible our community is, how collaborative we are, how it really was a village. So there's a cliche out there, it takes a village to raise a child. And that spoke so true in this moment, because every person I went to, whether they had the resource that they could provide or not, was excited about the initiative and hopeful with it. And I would say what I'm going to take is that idea of just asking, of going into the community and saying, hey, this is a problem that we need to solve. And like there's dog poop all over the city, right? It's not somebody saying, oh, it's Parks and Rec, or oh, it's, you know, the dog owners, or oh, it's, but if we all just, you know, grabbed a bag and picked up one when we saw it, then it's solved. So instead of asking ourselves, okay, whose job is that to get it done? It's how do we get the job done? And so I think I'm going to walk away with how do we get the job done, and how amazing my community is.
Wow, since great answer. Thanks. Anyone else? Catharina, maybe you can talk a bit about the innovations and the speed of setting things up. Is that something you would like to take with you when the pandemic is gone?
Yes, really. And I think it was nice to hear of all of the examples, because we have all been working quite quickly, I would say. And I think that if we want to move into the future and be part of the future, we really need to be quicker. So becoming more agile and to work in loops with trial and error and adjust all the time. I really think that is the way to work in the future. And I wouldn't like to go back to a more structured and planned and environment with more written reports. Increase the dialogue and less control. That is really something that I would like to continue with and get into the future. And that is a totally other managerial style than we had in the past, but move into a much more trust-based management.
Okay.
Future.
Great, thanks. I have one more question for all of you, since we have around 9 minutes left, and one comment. The comment is, I'm particularly impressed with the community support of the colleagues in the US when we hear so much negative stuff about the US society. So thank you, great job. And the question to all of you is, getting people back into the library is certainly a challenge. What is your one great advice that you would give all your colleagues that they should try? Whitney, I'll start with you. The rest of you can think of the answer.
Yeah, so I think every library is going to be in a different place. I think a few of us on this panel are from very small libraries, so I think that we have a little bit of interest built in. For instance, in my town, we are the only place really to go for any sort of connection or recreational activity, so that interest is built into the library. But one of the things that I would say is our communities are continually developing and changing, and there is something about humankind that does desire connection, and libraries are connectors, whether it be in this digital space or when we get back to face-to-face in-person interactions in our buildings. I would say focus on that you are the connectors in your community, because people do need that. And that would be my biggest piece of advice. Is I'm actually very optimistic as we move forward about libraries, because I think we have shown how innovative we have been through this pandemic, and our communities have been immensely appreciative, and they have not forgotten about us. And so they will come back to the libraries. I firmly believe that.
Okay. Binoy, can you share some advice of how to get people back to the library? You're muted again. Yes.
Actually, we reopened our library in the September, and
okay.
September 2020, and with the COVID protocol, we received the users in the library. Strict measures are there, and also some sort of changes happened, and the new normal life is still continue. And I am the only one staff here, and my library committee members are also there. And I think some sort of changes is there. And one part is the digital and the services will continue, and our social media platform also continue. And users also accommodate these situations, I think, and they are very much accommodate these situations. And I am so optimistic in the future.
Right. Thanks, Binoy. Casey, can I ask you to comment on what your advice is to how to get people back to the library?
Right. We've been open for a while now too. We're a small town library, so we don't have quite as much spread. But once we did open up, it's been months and months and months now that we've been open, but if people are they still don't know that you're open. Once you close, they don't realize you're open for a very long time. It's amazing how long we're open. We're still getting new faces in saying, oh, we thought you've been closed still this whole time. Like Catharina said, we do feel that those lost users, and we can't really have people hanging out or programs yet. And there's homeless people that want to stay and take naps, and we can't do that. So that will probably come back, but not yet. We also lock our door. People walk up to the door and they put on their mask, and then we unlock it and hold the door open for them and let them in. And that has worked pretty well with the whole mask problem. So that worked here. I don't know if it works everywhere else, but that's a suggestion too.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Casey. Catharina, do you have some things you would share to end?
Yeah, I would actually say that yes, we are open, but we have a lot of people not coming to us as we are not a meeting place, and we don't have the programs either, and so on. So I would say that when this fades and we can start to go back to normal business, pop-up is my solution, to be where the citizens are and show what we are doing and what we can be doing to be relevant for them. So pop-up.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we're almost out of time. I had one request to share the presentations. Of course, we'll share the recording, but please, all of the panelists send their presentation to me. Some of you did, so I have them. But if you haven't already, please do so. I want to thank all of you, and I hope we can meet in better circumstances and in person. Yes. Thank you all for attending, and hope to see you all soon, and stay safe.
Yeah, I would also like to thank all of you, and I want to remind you that this has been an IFLA Public Library Section midterm seminar, reflecting back and thinking forward. We're partnering with the Literacy and Reading section, and thanks to all the attendees, the participants, and especially thanks to all the panel members for all your presentations and wonderful insights. It's been a great morning here in Sweden, and night or evening for the rest of you. So thank you all, and thank you for participating.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.